Property Debate. Today our focus is simple, to cull out with the country's top experts, lawyers and developers on what is it that the buyer of homes in India is really buying. What are the key areas of confrontation between developers and buyers? What causes the most unhappiness between the two? Where are the expectations unfulfilled? My panel today: Irfan Razak, CMD Prestige Group; Dipesh Bhaktani, Executive Director, JC Homes; Sudipta Pal, Advocate, Supreme Court; Colonel Sarvadaman Singh Oberoi, Principal Secretary, Federation of Apartment Owners Association; Nishant Singhal, Promoter and Director, Strategy Investors Clinic; Sameer Jasuja, CEO and Founder of Prop Equity. So we've really got a representation from the buyers, legal, and of course developers, and Sameer with his research. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining me. I think we're going to start with dividing the show into some of the top grievances that we've collected over the last 2 years that we've been doing the show. Yes, the property show in February completed 2 years, and classify them, what has been the biggest grief, and then go on down the list and get everybody to opine on how do you bring the buyers and sellers together on these points, and is the industry moving progressively towards clearing out these grey areas and becoming better or not. So let's start with the top grievance that everybody, or in fact most of our males have, which is loading. Excess loading is the big complaint. What's really happening? Well, no one really knows. Look at the terms that you have. You have carpet area, you have built up area, you have super built up area. You go and ask a developer, what am I going to get? And he says, look, there's not a loading more than 20%, but that's really not correct. I mean, we'll show you with the prop equity research and data that loading actually is what you actually get, the efficient usable area. In across cities in India, even the best city, which is Pune, is only 68%. In a city like Mumbai, it goes down to 60%. But coming to that later, I think the first grey area, and let's toss across to Mr. Razak. Mr. Razak, why is it that this being the biggest demand, the industry hasn't been able to bring about some amount of, or let's say a whole amount of transparency?
No, I think this loading is a very, very loose term that is being used. Basically, I think it's a wrong terminology itself. What happens is, we as developers, we do certain plans. In that, like you rightly said, there is a component of what the apartment really comprises of is A, the apartment itself, which is the carpet area, what the buyer uses, plus there is the common areas. Now the common areas start with the entrance lobbies, the corridors, the lift courts, the staircases, proportionate use of the share of the clubhouse, and all the common amenities, and whatever that is goes into the overall built up area. Now as a transparent process, I think most of the Bangalore builders, what we do is when we do a deal with our customers, we tell them very transparently, we ask our architects to prepare the entire statement which shows the area of the apartment, and then there's a complete chart which is showing the common areas that have been added up to the overall proportionate share, and the proportionate share of common area plus the plinth is the super built area is what we sell. It's a very open, transparent method. As a developer, I would not like to charge 1 square foot less for whatever I'm building, nor would I like to charge my customer a square foot extra of what I'm building. I have to build and sell whatever is being I have to sell whatever is being built.
In fact, Colonel Oberoi is here. He's the Principal Secretary of the Federation of Apartments Owners Association, and you were telling me, sir, that Bangalore is probably one of the most transparent cities when it comes to specifying what the super to carpet area will be, and actually the buyer knowing what really is he buying. But that's not happening across the country, is it? I mean, in Haryana, if you go and buy, and if you ask him, so all right, if the super built up is 2,000 square feet, what am I going to get as a carpet area? Most of them brush off the question, because I've been a buyer myself, and they say, oh, we don't do loading of more than 20 to 25%.
See, in Delhi, Haryana, Bangalore, Hong Kong, I had done the research in 2008. I put RTIs to the Urban Development Ministry, and I have come up with the interesting information that the super area is illegal in the country as per IS 3861 of 2002. Under RTI, the government would not inform me this. I found it by chance. And super area, therefore, even the Bangalore model, though it is as per Hong Kong and it is correct, but as per our Indian law, it is illegal. So they should get on to either DU area or the carpet area, or the Bombay model of carpet area, which include balconies and this and that, and does some loading. So Bombay is okay now if they follow the present carpet area regulation which has been issued now. So I think the matter is resolved. There is no such thing as super area in this country. It is illegal, and IS 3861 of 2002 says so.
All right. Okay, but I'm sure that developers have a point of view saying, as Mr. Razak said, Sudipta, that, you know, if I'm building a clubhouse, if I'm building staircases, if I'm building lobbies, why should I not charge? I will charge for everything that I'm building. What I'm not building, I will not charge for.
Correct. See, nobody is against builders getting the money that they have built or making. The question is very simple. Like for instance, in any other industry, like in cars, there's a category. A flat of 1500 square feet, irrespective of where it is, should be a 1500 3-bedroom square feet area. If my property has more amenities, I should be ready to pay more for that. This is what the end users are looking for.
Okay.
If I'm buying a 1500 carpet square feet area flat, and if I've got more amenities, I should be ready to pay more. There's absolutely no problem.
So which way are you? Are you on the side saying that, look, charge me on the carpet area, even if the carpet area per square feet price is quite high, right?
Yes,
but don't give me these different you know, nomenclatures which don't really tell me straight away what am I going to be living in, what's the size that I'm going to be living in.
This is exactly what I'm saying, that if there is a particular flat, the rate should always be on a square feet area, because this is something.
Carpet area.
Carpet area.
All right. Okay. So before I go on to my next bit of panelists, let me just, you know, for all of you watching this show, I'm sure all of you are very clear about the definitions, but just to recollect, what is carpet area? It means the net usable floor area within a building, excluding walls or any other area specifically exempted from floor space index computation. Okay, don't get complicated or confused with that. It's simply, it's the net usable floor area inside your house. Built up area means the area covered by a building on all floors. Total built up area, there's another nomenclature, is the built up area plus area used for balconies. Super built up area is the built up area plus proportionate area of common areas such as the lobby, lift, shaft, stairs, etc. Sometimes it may also include common areas such as swimming pool, garden, clubhouse, and of course there is a lot of areas which are nebulous and they change from state governments to state governments. Nishant, you know, so my big question has always been, and this is something that we've discussed, would I be, as a buyer, be happier paying knowing what I'm going to get as a carpet or net usable livable area rather than getting a lower price and looking at a super built up area?
See, as per our experience, we talk to 40,000 clients every month. Clients don't have any problem in understanding carpet area and the fact that they have to pay for the common areas also, which is like lift, lobby, staircase, corridors, etc., etc. They understand that. Okay. All they want is, like Mr. Razak said, that it should be shown transparently as to what is the exact calculation. Now, for example, if I take example of Gurgaon, as per the FAR allowed, 1 acre can have only 76230 square feet built up area. Whereas developers are selling anywhere between 95,000 to 1,10,000 square feet sellable area. Okay, whereas like you said that your built up area is the building envelope, anything which is within the 4 walls of the building.
Sure.
So buyers don't have any problem in paying for common areas. So if I have wider corridors, say 8 feet corridor, it enhances the view of the building.
Right.
I am ready to pay a higher price for the common area. All buyers want is that you disclose transparently what is the difference between carpet area and the super area, which, like Bangalore is developers in Bangalore are disclosing, developers in other places are not disclosing.
Not disclosing. Sameer, come in here. I mean, your research and of course shows that Pune offers maximum carpet area as part of its total sellable area, while Mumbai is the least efficient in terms of carpet area versus sellable area. And if you look at the order of efficiency, Pune stands at 68%, Bangalore is close at 65%, Kolkata, Noida are at 64%, Ahmedabad, Gurgaon at 63%, Chennai, Hyderabad at 62%, and Mumbai at just 60%. So Dipesh will come in to, defend his city a little bit later, but do you think that that's the way and there is no other way to be selling in this country?
First of all, I don't think there's any defense for anybody. I clearly think that, since there is no regulation, since the developer can actually get away, and this is the only way for him to get away without any questions being asked, there is this super to carpet area debate that the whole country is having and feeling really cheated. What really happens is that there is a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach. So what we are all discussing over here is a top-down approach, which is far more higher than a bottom-up approach, right? So there is a difference of 1% to 20% in just both these approaches.
Absolutely.
And we can share that on the show. What is more important to know is that I don't think any complex, because as the complex gets bigger, there is more economies of scale, even in terms of more number of units, and the super area, the common areas can actually get divided between those many apartments. So the proportion should start coming down, but it doesn't happen.
It doesn't come down.
It doesn't happen. In my view, no super to carpet area, irrespective of whatever kind of development that you do, should be beyond 25%.
Okay.
Right, and across the board, it is between 30 and 40%. So there is this rampant, rampant way of trying to be able to extract more money through the super to carpet area route, because there is no way for anybody to check that. Although it's very simple to do it, but the developer makes it so complicated.
It gets
right,
camouflaged.
and so scientific that you just cannot be able to do that, and even the government has not been able to come around, and the judges don't understand it, so there is no real answer till developers don't try and become transparent on their own.
Dipesh, what's your defense for Mumbai? It rates the worst when it comes to what people really get as livable, efficient, usable area in flats that they buy from Mumbai developers.
I completely agree what Mr. Razak said, but I'll tell you a different perspective here too. What was happening earlier was that, in South Mumbai, you always had the carpet areas which the developers were quoting on, and that was continued all the time. But once the DC rules and everything changed, and we started getting no free areas, everything started coming into FSI, all the developers started charging on carpet. So that trend started continuing to some locations in Mumbai, but it could not happen everywhere, and in some locations it's still a problem where if a developer is quoting on carpet and it has a price of around 20-25,000, but actually on the sellable it's around 16,000, the customer is quite satisfied with that kind of 16,000 rate and all, but they still don't understand the carpet areas when it becomes so expensive. So a lot of section of developers are not able to sell on carpet areas because the rates sound very high. But what as a body MCHI CREDAI has, as all the members have started quoting on carpet, we are a member, we are quoting on carpet, and a lot of locations in Mumbai are quoting on carpet, but I'm not saying that a lot of developers are still following it, because it becomes very difficult in putting up to a customer whether he's paying for a carpet area or for a sellable area.
Okay. Mr. Razak, I'm not able to understand. Here's a view that most people who are representing either the research community or the buyers are saying that why do we need to even load more than 25%, and this is top down. So if it's a 1,000 square feet apartment, then livable area cannot be lower than 750 square feet. My question to you, sir, is that yes, we talk about giving better facilities like clubhouses and more green areas, but we charge those in premium pricing, don't we? We say, hey, this is a luxury project, so it can't come to you at 4,000 rupees per square feet. It will come to you, let's say, at 8,000 rupees per square foot. So isn't it, A, you're calling it luxury because of the amenities that you're charging, so therefore you're charging a higher price, and then you also get away by loading luxury projects more?
No, I think we need to just break this up into a few parts. It's the conversation that has just gone by is pretty interesting. I agree with the gentleman who said that the overall common area should not be more than 25 or 30%. And in several of our developments, including the clubhouse, including all the common services, everything, it's between 18 to 28%, depends on how efficiently you design the product and how big or how small or whatever size you use for your clubhouse. There are two ways of doing this business. If there is a regulation or if there is a law that says that, look, you sell it only on carpet area, there is absolutely no problem. I don't think anybody should have any objection towards that. You have to just do your math. You're selling it on the carpet area, and whatever other amenities you're providing, say supposing what really happens is it becomes very difficult for the buyer itself to compare apple to apple. I may have a development next to mine on the same location where a developer is doing a 10,000 square foot clubhouse, whereas I would have done a 50 or 60,000 square foot clubhouse. And if I'm selling on carpet area, A developer versus a B developer, I become uncompetitive only because my price per square foot will be much higher than the other developer who's building and giving you lower amenities and smaller corridors, and so it's a confusion for the buyer.
Do you think developers will agree? I mean, maybe Bangalore developers will, because they've already been very transparent, Colonel Oberoi, but there's going to be a huge resistance. I can sense it. I mean, developers in other cities are just not ready to sell on carpet area.
Well, I'll tell you something which is that the law states you will sell carpet area in Maharashtra. In Haryana it is DU area. They are also planning to change it to carpet area. The IS 3861 says illegal for super area. So, and there is somebody who has gone to the CBC and got an order to Haryana Economic Offences Wing to charge some developers for selling super area under IPC 420. The inquiry is going on.
Okay, so you've already told us.
What do you mean by selling on carpet area? If you're selling on carpet area, doesn't mean anything. How are you going to load the club and the common areas in any case? So selling on carpet area is really no solution. Okay. Because all you're saying is that I'm selling you 720 square foot and I'm charging you a much higher rate, but what are you indirectly doing? All the common areas are being loaded into that price and then being sold to you.
So what you're saying
is that is a solution at all.
So here we are, where we are saying that the common area should not exceed more than 25%
yes,
or 30%?
There has to be a law which should simply say that, okay, up to, and this can be very easily done. Like you have FAR, on 1 acre you cannot build more than 76,000 square feet.
Right.
Like in green areas you cannot have more than 40% ground coverage or 50% ground coverage. For example, you cannot build for say a 100 unit complex, you can't have more than 20% super to carpet area. For a 200 unit complex you can't have more than 25%, and so on.
Okay, so DIPCA has a difference of opinion.
Very simply do that. Developer will turn around and say, no, I am making a more luxury development, so confine that within that super to carpet area like you do it in every other case.
So DIPCA?
I think if this happens, what Samir is saying, I think developers will lose a lot of freedom. No, what I am trying to tell you is, today, otherwise all group housing societies are going to look alike. If you say 25... No, I'll come to that. Today, if you look at the bylaws and the statutes which governs these things, they say that more than 35% or 40% of the total land area you can't cover. You can cover less. Now, the freedom has been given to a builder looking at the market. He does his own research, he come out with a scheme. The policy is, the government says, here is a plot for you, you buy it at this rate, you make a scheme, you load it whatever you want, go to the market, sell your product. Don't come back to me.
For your product, then buy now.
Correct.
Okay.
So today,
so we are not getting anywhere.
Why don't you disclose? Why don't you disclose 40% super to carpet area and see what happens?
Right.
See, but if this goes on for very long, like builders themselves are finding it very difficult, and they are almost saying, the gentleman from Bangalore saying that let the government, why don't the government make a rule that it should be on carpet area, it should not be more. I think that would be disastrous. Very good promoters or builders would not be able to come out with great projects.
You think so, Nishant?
See, the perception that understanding the calculation between carpet area and super area is difficult is wrong, okay?
Okay.
It can be explained in a table of 4 rows alongside the layout of your apartment.
It can be done?
Yeah, and it's very easy. You say this is the carpet area.
Then why don't developers tell you openly what the loading is?
Again, that's what, and so Dipta is making a right point that between a luxury project and an affordable project, there will be difference. The point is that you disclose
Okay.
What you are loading, what is your balcony, what is your corridor, and if the customer is happy to pay for a wider corridor, which means higher loading, it's fine.
Okay, all
So
right.
I'm only saying disclose.
I think it's
Disclose.
more
Okay,
because of
I think we've just, I'm hearing from the director that you have to take a break, but we pretty much arrived at some solid solutions for this entire, you know, secrecy clouded around super to carpet area, or the biggest area of confrontation between a buyer seller. We'll come back. There are many more points and we can't spend the entire show on just super to carpet. You're watching what is the Indian buyer really buying today in real estate, and how do we make sure that he gets what he's paying for? Welcome back. We had a really interesting first segment where we got opinions on the biggest area of confrontation, or at least the buyer's discomfort, that he doesn't really know what's the livable, efficient, usable area that he's getting when he buys a flat. And of course, the consensus has been that as long as the builder discloses, here's your carpet area, this is what you're getting charged for the carpet area, here's your super area, this is what you're getting charged for a super area, and just have those columns which tells you what you're buying and what the loading is, or how much carpet to super are you buying. I think that's what the buyer wants. Okay, let's move on to another big area, PLC, preferred location charges. A term which really should be limited to, let's say, 10% or 20% flats which probably have a great view, or any other amenities that go specifically for those flats. But guess what? If I look at the way flats are being sold across the country, in any development, sometimes almost 90% flats end up having a PLC. Dipesh, why? What is preferred location charge? Why are you charging, or why are developers slapping PLC on 80 to 90% of flats in any development?
I really don't think that it's probably so high to 80 to 90%. I haven't really come across that the charges are so high.
Tell me what the number
But yes,
is.
sometimes.
You tell me what the number
Sorry?
is. How many flats, or what percentage of flats can be called PLC, preferred location?
I would say it could be around 40%.
Really?
That could
Okay,
be
40%,
that could be
fine.
the. Yeah, I don't think it is. I don't think it is so high, and I think it's really up to the developers, and it's also up to the because you know we have those kind of customers in the market who really want to see whether they want to buy flats that are probably in the kind of location and probably a little area, a smaller area, but the kind of locations they want to shift in, or probably they want to be in some other location and probably take a bigger size also. So accordingly, the kind of demands that a developer gets, that according to that, you know, he charges those kind of rates.
Mr. Razak, I'm just not comfortable with this PLC business. 40% of flats in a development cannot be preferred location. You know, this is really something which I am not able to accept. That why? I can understand 10, 15, 20%, but 40, 50%, and believe me, there are developments where 80% flats are being charged, at least in North India, a PLC, or a preferred location charge, sir.
Manisha, it's a marketing strategy basically. Ultimately, now it all depends. Like now, I did one project in Kochi.
Say that. I'm so glad to hear that honesty from Bangalore at least coming. It is a marketing strategy, isn't it?
I mean, no, but let me expand this a bit. Right, I was just going into, say, like a project I did in Kochi. Now, I had a huge expanse of flats facing the waterfront, and I had some 30-40% of those flats facing the back road. Now, obviously, the ones facing the waterfront are PLC, and the ones that are not facing the waterfront are the not so preferred. Now, here it's again, as I use the word marketing strategy only because, see, I have to make my product affordable. I have to see I get a certain average pricing for the whole development. So before any pricing is done, before we work out the overall product mix, what we need to do is understand what is my average recovery from this entire development. Certain apartments we say, okay, we can sell this at a lower price, and that becomes a lower entry price for the people who get in there. And the ones really which are PLC, those will be a much higher number, higher price.
We've got, and I don't want to name the developer here because this is not developer bashing, and this is in a market where you sell the most, which is Lucknow, where there's been a clear case that a certain number of floors, up to 12 floors, was PLC. Because you know, in North India people don't like to go high rise. Above 12th floor was said is not PLC, it's on floors. Forget the views, Nishant, it's not about the views. Up to 12th floor you have to pay a preferred location charge. Above 12th floor you don't have to pay a preferred location charge. Guess what? Someone went and bought on the 16th floor and they still got charged a year later with PLC. Now that absolutely just doesn't make any sense.
So I think this is an exceptional scenario. Okay, I see.
But can floors be made PLC?
See how many percentage
Preferred location by floors?
What percentage of
View, floors. So here it is. If you look at the garden, clearly it's PLC. If you look at the swimming pool, it's a PLC. If you've got inside facing east with sun coming inside your window, it's a preferred location charge. Guess what? If you've got terrace, it's PLC. And if you've got up to 15th floor, it's PLC. So literally you've covered 80% of a development.
Yeah, so basically what I'm trying to emphasize on is that percentage of apartments which will carry PLC depend on the cluster planning. Okay, if in a development you have only 2 to a core apartment, okay, then all the apartments 90% can have PLC.
Then why make it PLC? Why don't you just make it as a base price? Part of your basic selling price.
Like Mr. Razak said, that it is ultimately about the average pricing you want to take. Okay, PLCs are of two types, view and floor. Okay, in North India, lower floors attract PLC. I mean, it is up to the customer whether they want to take lower. So there is complete freedom to the customer. As far as view is concerned, okay, so view PLC is either the garden facing or the club facing. You take non-club facing. So ultimately what Mr. Razak said, it is about the average pricing of the project. So we cannot say that 90% of the apartment cannot have PLC. They can have, depending on the cluster planning.
Just like to add to that also, that there is a price, this is a pricing strategy and a marketing strategy, and within PLCs also there is pricing differentiators. So that's why the developer comes out and creates different types of PLCs, because
he wants pricing of the product, and therefore
pricing strategy.
Buyers shouldn't have an issue with it. Would you agree, Colonel Oper?
It's given.
I would agree, provided they put in carpet area this much, for this flat, for this carpet area this is the rate, super area so much, this is the rate.
Okay, so your biggest concern is carpet super area. You're saying I want clear rates for every usable and non-usable area that I'm buying. That's a much bigger contention than a preferred location charge. So Dipta, we are agreeing that PLC, there's really no reason to bash the developers, poor things. That's what we do all the time with them.
I think PLC, the way we are thinking, it doesn't always happen that way. People end up paying PLC even after when the entire scheme has been changed. And there's a building that has come in front of him. Now, see, the thing is, this entire thing is market driven. Different markets react differently, different buyers have different preferences, and at the same time each market has to retain itself within a price bracket. So the most unpreferred flat is at the market rate. This is how they work.
So the worst of the product is at the average market rate, and everything has a rational or a logic to be priced higher than the average market
You'll often be attracted to a price band given in an advertisement that you get a flat for 22 lakhs. You'll go and find that's the most unpreferred flat with absolutely no
I
PLC.
think, Sudipta, you've just hit the nail on its
That is how it is.
That you will, in an advertisement, get the basic price of the most unpreferred flat, and then of course anything else that you like, you will have to shell out more.
Correct.
Why not just make it more transparent and say, guess what, our flats are, you know, between 3,000 and 5,000, because that could sometimes be the range. We're going to take a quick break. I think one last big point which needs to be discussed, which is a big buyer grouse. Believe me, 25 to 30,000 emails. We stopped counting after a while on how many we've got on the property show, and these are actually a laundry list of the biggest grouses that we've collected from these emails. Is A, there's a delayed delivery from the developer, but guess what? The undue payment demands or the pressure from the developer never eases. But what you get from the developer for the delay is just absolutely does not commensurate either the emotional pain or the financial pain that you go through because of the delay. We'll come back and resolve this big disconnect between the buyer and the seller. confrontation between a buyer and seller of real estate in this country. We've already discussed, at least the big ones have been covered. But the biggest of them all, buyer-seller agreement itself, it's so one-sided, it's so lopsided that, of course, some of the gentlemen who are present here to give their expert opinion says if a buyer had to read the buyer-seller agreement, they would never buy a flat or a house in this country. Sudipta, come in here. How have we been accepting such one-sided buyer-seller agreements? Are we so desperate?
See, when we say buyer and seller's agreement, unfortunately the buyer doesn't have any say. These are dotted line agreements. And courts consistently have held that these dotted line agreements do not hold much of water in courts of law. For two reasons. One is there is always a statutory cover over each clause of an agreement. And if there is any clause which is contrary to a statute, then it is null and void. So I want to use this platform to tell people that they need not be very worried about all that is written there. Unfortunately, sellers often call him to the office and say, look what you have signed. You have given me everything. It's not so. There are statutes, like for instance the apartment tax, the development tax. If it prohibits a particular thing, but the builder has unknowingly or knowingly got you to sign contrary to that statutory provision.
The law is still on your side.
Yes, because Contract Act Section 23 says any clause of an act which is contrary to a statute is null and void. So they need not be worried so much about it, but they need to know both sides of it.
You know, they're not worried, but it always leads to so much litigation. I mean, look at Consumer Court in Thane. The maximum number of cases are pertaining to real estate and buyer-seller agreements, Colonel Oberoi.
See, what should be done is the buyer should be educated enough. When they sign it, after signing it and once they've done everything, they should send a letter saying that these clauses are illegal as per this and I wish to rescind them. So then they would get covered later on. If they were to keep quiet for 5, 6, 7 years and 10 years down the line, if they go to the court will say you signed it and you kept quiet all these years. So within that period of 2 to 3 years of signing the agreement, you still have a window of opportunity to recuse yourself. So then you do this, and every seller should do it, and ultimately of course the CCI and all are seized of this, that the
CCI basically said that buyer-seller agreements cannot be one-sided, isn't it?
So they are seized of it, and nobody has gone to the court with a proper writ petition till today on this matter, you see. If somebody was to go, it would be decided in favor that this agreement of this state has to be like this, and the DTCP is hereby ordered to direct the developer to make the agreement like this. Nobody has gone to the court.
Fair enough. Nishant, I think one big area of concern, and this I've seen in many of the mails that we've got, is that look, developers end up actually charging you 90% of your money on just slabs, though finishing takes equal amount of time, right? So by the time, let's say 70% of the building is complete, you've paid up 90%. And they would probably take another 2 to 3 years to complete. They would not be able to meet their deadline of 3 years or 4 years because they've also got problems at their end, but they will not be upfront about how much time they will take. At the end of it, if the buyer delays in any payments, he's slapped 18 to 20%. But if they delay, they have such minimum penalties. I mean, how do they get away with that?
I agree. See, but the payment plans are disclosed in advance to buyers. Now,
so my question is, why are they so lopsided?
So we can't say buyers are novices and they should not see anything, and we can't keep blaming developers for it. See, some paper is brought before you. You have to read it, understand it. So if there is a project where till the top floor you are paying only 70%, and there is a project where you pay 90%, you should actually not buy that project. So you can't run away from the due diligence which one should do at the time of buying. So buyers need to see it carefully. However, I agree with your point that if they don't pay on time, they are slapped with 18% interest, which is 2 times the fixed deposit rate of interest which RBI allows. Whereas if the developer delays, they pay 5 rupees per square feet per month, which doesn't even come to 1% of the total cost.
And look at the difference. It's crazy. I mean, 1% versus 18%. Sameer, every time you go to a lawyer, you get it vetted. Even then, you can't get away from clauses like this.
Can I give a practical suggestion to all the viewers? I think they have to look at a larger picture. Going to court is no solution because it will take you 5 to 10 years, and you will just get so fatigued by the end of it that the 5 rupees or the 10% that you're fighting for, you would have paid up much more than that in the litigation fees and would have not even got possession of your flat. So if you want to be practical, if you're willing to do this court battle for 10 years and take possession of the flat, that's a separate story. But this is not going to change. We are living in the wild, wild west. Till a real estate regulator does not come in, please don't have any expectations. I know of developers who start with a one-sided agreement and go to a developer and say, go to a lawyer and say, can you make it more one-sided? That's the way it is, and it's not going to change. So let's get practical about it. Till somebody does not come with the law and hammer you on your head, it's not going to change. So let's get practical about it.
Dipesh, my God, wild, wild west. That's how the real estate industry has just been described. Nothing's going to change till we have a regulator in place.
I don't completely agree that it is lopsided. At least here in Mumbai, in Maharashtra, we have the MOFA agreements that has been drafted and given, and accordingly those kind of agreements are signed with the consumers. If some developers are trying to make it completely lopsided, then yes, it's not going to have any stand in the court of law, because the kind of agreements that are given, we have to sign it that way.
Mr. Razak, I'm going to ask you to wrap it out for us. I mean, buyer-seller agreements, they're extremely one-sided, sir, and when it comes to delayed payments, and the liability of the developer versus the seller, sir, it's totally lopsided still, isn't it?
I think developers are actually portrayed as villains, which we are not. An agreement can't be so one-sided. You know, has anybody taken a home loan or a loan for that matter? I signed so many loan documents. Believe you me, there's so much to sign, you don't even have time to read that, because if you start reading it, you won't take a single loan. Similarly, now I would request somebody to put themselves into the shoes of the developer. It is not an easy job that we are doing. It's a thankless job. Believe you me, okay, fine, what drives us? For some people it drives creating something, for some people it is it's probably the money, the profits or whatever else. But at the end of the day, if you are a developer, you have to be half mad to go through all these regulations, getting the plans approved, then talking about the customer, super area and all of that. Because honestly speaking, now if you don't tighten up your agreement the way you do, and you see you're putting your entire development at risk, because when you're pre-selling it, you're pre-selling it at a fixed price, you're taking over the huge risk of cost overruns, which nobody wants to pay you, even if there's whatever the cost overrun is. Secondly, if people don't perform, there's no discipline and they don't keep paying their installments on time, the other people who are paying on time will be in jeopardy. So that's the reason why there is a sort of a slight sword hanging on the fellow who's defaulting. We don't expect anybody to default, so why crib? If you're not defaulting, there's no penalty, there's no interest. Only the penal provision is, in case you default, you will have to pay that interest. So I believe it's very fair. And at the same time, if the developer is defaulting, if the developer is delaying, okay, there are certain provisos like force majeure, where for reasons like beyond the control of the developer. Now, like few weeks ago, we had a sand strike in Bangalore. 1 month, 1.5 months, we didn't get any sand. Now what do? With all the good intentions that we want to run the project, there is a stoppage of work. Now to restart that takes time. So you lost a momentum, but at the same time you would like to reach the goal on the committed delivery date.
I think you've summed it up quite well for us. Really, the intention was not to do any developer bashing, just to highlight some areas of concerns that consumers still have with, of course, the real estate sector. It's come a long way, we must say that, and you've said, well, at least if you know what you're buying, what terms you're buying at, and you're getting a good product, you shouldn't be cribbing about most of the things. We will continue to crib, that's our job, and get you to get better, sir. Thank you so much for joining in today. Dipesh Bhaktani, thanks very much for making the time. Mr. Razak, pleasure to have you. And of course, my panelists here, thanks very much for making the time. Well, it's our job to keep taking your voice to the developers, to the sector, and figure out a way to make sure that there is no slip between the cup and the lip, between the expectations and the delivery, and someday we'll have everybody as a happy buyer of homes in India. Thank you very much for joining me, and goodbye.